Welcome to the Uncle Hack Podcast, where dudes pretty much just talk dude shit.
Welcome to another episode of the Uncle Hack Podcast. I have a very interesting guest for you guys, Shannon Sweet. You are a real life prostitute.
Yes, I am.
Yes. And how long have you been doing this for?
You know, it's probably been about on and off for about 8 years,
right.
And then straight for about 5 years. So
okay.
8 years altogether.
8 years total?
Yeah.
So, like, when you say that 8 years total, you took some time off?
I took a little bit of time off. I was an exclusive companion to one person for about a year.
Okay.
And then, so I was out of the business for about a year, and then took 6 months off or something. And yeah, the rest of the time it's just been being an escort.
Really?
Yes.
So how do you get into something like that? Like, what was your main motivation to become a prostitute? Yeah.
So I'm a single parent.
Yeah.
And I had a couple kids to take care of. And I had two separate friends, probably about a week apart. They didn't know one another, so it was a little odd. And they both were like, how are you affording to live? You're going to university full time. You have these kids you're taking care of. Like, how do you afford anything? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just making it work. And both of them suggested this. And I was like, what the hell? Like, I've never even thought of that at all. And both of them, encouraged me to do it. So one, who had more time on her hands than the other, or me, researched a bunch of stuff and got me involved with an escort agency. And I don't think there were a lot of tall redheads with big boobs in Edmonton at the time. And I became pretty popular pretty fast, and I was completely anxiety-stricken and quit that. And it was just too overwhelming, I think. And the same friend then later suggested body rub studios, which I didn't even know existed.
Right.
And she hooked me up with a body rub studio, and that's how I got into the business.
Now, to put it in more aggressive terms, is that just like kind of like a
It's a brothel.
Okay.
No, it's a it's a massage studio.
Okay,
yeah.
So like a crank station or however you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
okay.
you're working with other people, you're licensed, and
Mm-hmm. Which is different than most cities in Canada being in Edmonton, right?
Yeah, I'm fortunate. I think I'm fortunate to be in Edmonton because I think Edmonton's a lot more progressive than a lot of other cities. In Edmonton, if you want to get into this, you have to take a course with the city of Edmonton. You do a criminal record check once a year, and then you get your license renewed once a year as well.
Okay.
So, I think it helps them keep tabs on people more than anything, or intervene when people are in more vulnerable situations.
Yeah, because it seems like it could be an industry that's like obviously a little more crime-stricken, or you get involved in maybe some situations that you don't necessarily find yourself wanting to be in.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that happens. I've had a lot of really good experiences. There's a lot that goes on out there that, I don't want to be involved in for sure, but unfortunately it goes on. So I think having the licensing involved does really help. Keep that to a minimum, or at least have people out there that you can, resources that you can access more easily. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it opens up a door too, because honestly, it's one of the oldest professions that has ever been on the planet.
Yeah.
And it's crazy for me, like you hear many people talk about it, and it's crazy to think that you can buy marijuana now legally, you can buy liquor legally, but sex is still that one thing.
Yes. It's amazing.
It's taboo for some reason.
It's amazing to me. It's like super repressive,
yeah.
And it was not anything I ever woke up one day and just decided I wanted to get involved with the sex trade. It was a huge learning curve for me. Luckily, when I started with some people who'd been involved in the business for a long time, and I think they saw how deer in the headlights I was.
Yeah.
And so, they were really super generous with me with advice, and I started off on the right foot, in the sex trade. And, there's a lot of people out there that don't, and human trafficking is a real thing.
100%. And you're seeing it more and more, whether it be underage traffic. Like, I mean, look at the Jeffrey Epstein case.
Oh, yeah, totally.
You know, like,
totally.
That's a huge one to pop the lid off of.
Yeah.
Which, you know, shit rolls downhill and you start seeing more and more of these illegal rings getting busted every day.
Every day. And it's not, you know, it's not just that. It's, you know, different relationships where somebody, you know, you're under the guise of you're my girlfriend and you're going out to work.
Yeah.
You know? So
okay.
Things like that go on, which I think would fall into the category of human trafficking. And there's not a lot of, you know, for all the, you know, human trafficking talk, there's not a lot of like real definition out there, you know, or the conversation's not being had, you know, where it brings it down to a real human level, I don't think. As much as it should for all the talk of human trafficking. There's not a lot of particulars, you know?
Yeah.
Where you would recognize it as actual human trafficking.
It is, and especially, too, when it's it can be disguised as a business, too. Even with having the licensing and everything, it still can be disguised, I feel like.
Yeah. You know, I'm really lucky. Like, I've worked at 2 body rub studios, and both of them were really... huge advocates of you take charge of your life and you do something with this, you know?
Yeah.
And really generous with resources and really encouraged people to get help when they needed help. So I was really fortunate. I can't speak about, you know, other studios or agencies or anything, but the 2 that I have worked for have been really good.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it's been a good experience in a lot of ways.
It sounds like your overall experience has been so far positive. Has there been any negative experiences that you've had since being in this? Obviously, there has to be some.
Yeah, there's some, I think, you know, when I started, I didn't realize this, but there are people out there that sit on, you know, the different advertising sites and they recognize girls that have just started. And so unless you're getting, you know, some coaching along the way, you might not be super aware of what your boundaries are with things. And so, you know, when I started, I had guys that really pushed boundaries with different services, et cetera, that I don't offer, never have offered. And, you know, I had to develop those boundaries, you know, and actually a voice to communicate that, you know, these things aren't going to happen. And, you know, and then years down the road, you know, working in a studio and seeing other girls starting. You see the same guys come in, right? So I didn't realize. I was like, oh my God. So you know, I'm happy to be able to give ladies advice that are just starting out, like what to watch for, you know. So it's good. Yeah, it's good that way.
What would be something that you now from having the experience in what's something that you could see being one of those kind of red flags immediately?
With a client?
Yeah.
You know, when I first started, I think guys trying to get more, you know, and there's little things like trying to play one girl off to the other. Like, this girl would do this service, you know, things like that. And, you know, trying to get more time out of you. Trying to take you on uncompensated trips is another one, you know. You know, trying to just use up your time talking, texting, etc. Trying to take over your life, basically. You know?
Yeah. The old chase the nickel trick. Hey?
Yeah, something along those lines. Yeah.
Shit. Now you said you were going to university. Did you ever finish your degree?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I finished my degree. And
what did you get a degree in?
I got a degree in business, in economics.
Perfect thing for.
Yeah, exactly. I applied all the principles.
Do you just are you strictly just doing prostitution right now, or do you have like other means of income as well?
I say I have a straight job.
I like how you call it that.
Yeah, I call it a straight job. I have a straight job. I've got a couple other things on the go, so I'm a busy lady. So the escort does take a little bit of a back burner now, but yeah, I'm still involved.
Do you find yourself leaning more, like, now that you've, 10 years or 8 years, sorry.
Yeah.
8 years of doing it, are you kind of getting like tired of it? Do you feel like it's like getting old to you? Or you're
no, you know what? Strangely enough, like I have a lot of really great clients that I've met over this time who are just awesome people.
Yeah.
And so it's, you know, it's a length of time now where, you know, I've seen people, they share like all aspects of their life with me. And so they're more like client, I call it some guys client friends, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just good to catch up with them a lot. And, you know, there's a bit of a social aspect there. I do some traveling, not lately because of COVID, with different clients and things.
Yeah.
So, you know, for a long time it was like my social life almost.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you think if you were to quit sex work at all, that you would continue the relationship of like a friendship or anything?
Yeah,
with those
you
people?
know, I think so.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I have some really great friendships that have come of this. And I don't hesitate in saying that they're friendships at all. Mm-hmm. You know? So yeah, I've met some like super interesting people, you know, and just seen like different phases of their lives. I fixed up a couple guys with ladies that I know, and they've gotten married and have awesome lives now. And
oh, really?
Oh yeah,
so
totally.
you're
it's
almost
crazy.
What's that movie that Dane Cook was it? You remember where a chick would fuck him? And then they would
and then the
find
next.
Then they good luck Chuck.
Good luck Chuck.
Yeah. You're the female. Good luck.
I'm
Chuck.
the female version of Good Luck Chuck. Yeah, and most of the time I'm like telling these guys, I'm like, you're gonna take this friend of mine out for coffee or something like that, right?
You're
like
very
I just
stern with it.
Sometimes, yeah, you have to be. So your gender sometimes I think needs to be somebody to be a little stern with them sometimes.
Yeah.
You know?
I find myself slacking too. Like I get a little lazy at times.
Do you?
Yeah, I think it's just it's a dude thing. I refer to everything like that is a dude behavior.
Yeah.
You know, like
sometimes you just need some direction.
Yeah, like
you know, parameters and direction and a point form list.
100%.
Yeah.
It'd be much easier, like seeing that. Okay, be like, okay, if my day was planned out, but sometimes I'm just like, fuck, I don't want to do anything, and I don't even mind that I've wasted 2 days on the couch.
Yeah, no, totally. Sometimes I think guys, they might not 100% know what's good for them, and so you know, some of my clients like they come to me for some assistance that way. You know, just. You know, I had one guy, and he had been in this horrible relationship, and he was like a decent-looking guy. He was like fantastic, he was a very, very nice person. And anyway, he'd gotten rid of this girl that soaked him for all this money and was horrible. And he just needed like some confidence, I think, right? And so we made this deal where I was like, he got on these dating websites, and he'd come and see me and tell me about some lady that he met or whatever, and he'd show me a picture and tell me about her, and, you know, she didn't sound as good as I thought she should be for him, and I'd be like, she's not good enough. And so, and he was totally shocked by this, as I think a lot of guys are. I'm like, no, she's not good enough for you. Like, read this book, do this, do that, and raise your standards. And so, sure enough, like a year and a half later, he met this great girl, and they're married now and have a baby. So...
Time for a little ad. Oh, what's that? You tired of being a loser? You tired of being a little loser? Is that what I'm hearing? Perfect. You can head to dangercatshop.com. Use the code HACK20. Get 20% off your order. You'll slip into those threads and just be swarming with puss up to the ears. I'm talking about you'll be able to add about 69 horsepower onto your drinking. Well, how's that the case, Hack? How's that the case? Well, simple. You put on the tarp and you just burn diesel all night long. All night long. You might even eat an ass or two. Who knows? Oh, what's that? What's that, Hack? What's that? Oh, you like this podcast? You want an extra episode every week? Perfect. Well, head on over to patreon.com/dangercat69, and there is an extra episode of the Uncle Hack podcast waiting for you. There's probably a few you haven't even listened to, you cheap fuck. Fall off the wallet. Help your boy out. Let's produce better content with your money. What better deal do you want there? Hell, I can't think of a better deal. Could you? Yeah, you want to see your name roll in the credits? You want to see it down in the description down below? Perfect. Become a Danger Dong Patreon at patreon.com/dangercat69. Become a Danger Dong today. Don't be gay. become a danger dong today. And we're not discrediting if you're gay. That's all good, especially lesbians. We like the same shit.
Oh, and he's very, very happy with his life.
Crazy. Are you still in contact with him to this day?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
Okay.
But he let me know like this was going on and everything, and I haven't contacted him. No.
So a lot of your it sounds like a lot of these like Johns, I guess to say, aren't always. It's not a sexual relation.
It's not always hard-pounding porn action. No.
Yeah.
No.
Because I feel like that's a big misconception. Like in my head, when I think of like prostitution and everything, it's like, okay, I'm going to pay for sex.
Yeah. And that, of course, that's an aspect of it. But, I have a lot of clients that, they're working all the time. They don't have a lot of family around. They've had horrible relationships. Mm-hmm. They're like traumatized, I think. But they still need female human contact. Yeah. And so this is more of a safe, I'm not going to be stalking them sort of thing or trying to get on their bank account or anything, right? Like there's pretty clear boundaries with things.
Clear boundaries. And then there's like again, your time is valuable. So that comes at a price.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting because that was like one of the, I think, many misconceptions when it comes to prostitution. Mm-hmm. Is like the hardcore porn is like you're doing these heinous acts. Yeah, no, that's not been my experience with this. It might be for some. No, it's not. Like I'm treated really well. It's crazy. I'm not saying that it'd be like a dickhead or anything.
No,
it's just like
I thought that's like that was my misconception.
Right.
When I first started, and certainly people have those experiences out there for sure. That hasn't been my experience, the majority. Like I have a lot of really great clients that I'm really grateful for. They're good people, good guys, and maybe just have gone through a horrible divorce or just, in bad life situations and they need female energy around them,
Now, I find like your personality type, even like you're very well versed, you're well spoken and everything, and good. You seem like you're very stern.
Sometimes.
Is what I'm getting at.
Like a mother.
Yeah. So does that translate into your, or I guess what I'm asking is that been your personality type this whole time, or do you think like the sex work is like help create this more bold person? Yeah,
I think I've always been sort of stern. I joke, I say I get a lot done in a day. Mm-hmm. But the sex work definitely helped me. And some of the ladies that I've been, around, right, had an influence on really, bringing your voice forward and being really congruent and clear on what your intention is and that will, keep boundaries clear, keep yourself clear with those boundaries and remaining congruent with yourself when you're interacting with your clients. Yeah. For me, anyway, I'm always really clear on what my intention is with the relationship, or I try to be,
Yeah. No, so like, here's something that I've heard from like people is that it's legal to sell sex, but it's illegal to buy it. Is that true?
Yeah, it's true. And you can't, like for me, I don't discuss services over text, phone, or email. Because I never know who I'm talking to either. So it's face to face, right? So you go to my website, it has like a really extensive menu, and people kind of figure out what they want to talk to you about, you know, but face to face. And I don't agree to anything until I meet the person. Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it's kind of, so how do you vet somebody? So say somebody comes to your website or they email you or however they contact you. How are you, what's the vetting process?
They'll come with referrals from other ladies or, they'll, like I've had guys send me pictures of their ID. We can meet in public first. They'll tell me about themselves, etc. And, they'll give me their LinkedIn, they'll give me their business whatever. Like this is
not shy to share some information.
Yeah, they're not shy to if they want to meet you, they're not shy to share information. And I mean, I don't use that for anything other than making sure they're maybe not a serial killer,
Yeah, yeah. So. You don't need another Robert Pickton situation.
No, not at all.
It's like before in like the pre-interview, we kind of brought up the whole stepmom role play.
Oh yes, the
stepmom. This we both found quite odd for one because it to me I think it's such a weird thing, especially when you're watching pornography or anything, and the title is like "I fucked my stepsister" or something like that. That's just such a weird thing because I do have stepbrothers and stepsisters, and I can't fathom that idea or think of that as like any sort of.
Yeah, and it's very popular. It's amazingly popular. And now I've hit the age kind of where I'm like, yeah, I could be your stepmom, sort of, right? And it's funny because I have some other training in like a type of therapy role play sort of thing.
Okay.
And I didn't even realize that. And then I didn't even realize I could kind of use that in this. And so I started it, and it's been like super effective to the point that guys are like, yeah, I want to do this stepmom. And they're like emailing me the whole scenario and everything, and then get there. And I'll be like, it's like 5 sentences as to what their, something similar to what their real stepmom would say, right? And it's like game over. Like can't do anything. They see their stepmother and they're like, what have I done? So we've had those scenarios.
I can't think of that being something that I would like to imagine.
I don't know.
Personally, like,
there's all kinds of things. Like there's
different strokes, different folks.
It's different strokes. I've learned a lot about what people are attracted to, and I joke. I'm like, I don't know what that is, and so I go and research it on Pornhub, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I can do that. Yeah, sure, yeah, come, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
Can you give us like an example?
I feel like there's just so much, right? Like there's so many different things. I think so when I first started, one of the ladies that I started with, she had been a professional dominatrix for a long time. She was really, she was really a dominant woman. And she's like super capable lady and like super smart and like so many great qualities about her. And so she was like, you know what? You're going to learn how to do a prostate massage. Like they were like primarily these 3 women that I worked with, they were very like, this is what you're going to do, Shannon. And you're going to learn how to do this because it's worth a lot of money. Okay. And you're going to do it well. And I'm like total deer in headlights. Like already I'm thinking that I'm going to end up dead because like, preconceived notions about prostitution, right? And about these scenarios. And so I was like in this room and this woman's like showing me on a man how to do a prostate massage properly. Like just, I'm like, I didn't know this was a thing.
I'm sorry.
I know.
The visual in my head.
I know.
It's funny to me.
Oh yeah, I know.
It was like a woman with a finger up a man's
ass. Rubber glove on, and she's like going step by step through this. And I'm very grateful that she took the time to show me these things with like. Like I'm like there's no pride left, right? Like there's just I'm like okay, but I didn't know it was a thing. Like I was like I didn't know that. I didn't know like
you're still wet behind the ears.
Totally. And I think these ladies like knew like hey, this girl's going to university, she's got 2 kids like and they'd been there before, right? They'd been in tough situations and so they really were generous with me, and I'm grateful for that because it was very human first and no judgment, like zero judgment, you know, and just very, very humble, so it was good to have that experience. But like, I was like a garter belt, like, I don't know how to put, like, I knew nothing.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So were you promiscuous at all when you were a youth or anything?
Not particularly. No.
Like nothing really excited you about sex or nothing like
I think I was just like stunned, when I look back on it. Like I didn't watch porn. I didn't, like I'm not from Alberta. I showed up here to go to university and I knew nothing about oil, like the oil patch, like nothing, So it's been a huge learning curve.
So you've done a whole shift in your life. Were you religious growing up?
No, I know people ask me that, and I'm like, no, I wasn't religious. Like, like there was nothing. I don't know. I was, I was involved with sports. I was really, I think a lot of people grow up to think that, you grow up and you get married and have kids and that's it and you stay with the same person and stuff. And my life took a really, a huge shift where I had to reevaluate, like, okay, what is a relationship? What's a functional relationship? And learn what a functional relationship was, and what love was, and respect, in a relationship, because that was all stuff I didn't know. And had these 2 kids to raise, and for a variety of reasons, like zero support in any way, shape, or form. So in a lot of ways, the sex trade was really good for me, and I got contact with men. I like men,
Yeah.
So that was a bonus.
It's win-win. You're getting.
I didn't have to go on these dating websites,
which are atrocious nowadays.
They're wild. These friends of mine encouraged me to go on a dating website once, and it resulted in me in 2 weeks, and then I had to change my telephone number and just deactivate everything. Yeah, it was wild.
I did have some luck, I guess, to say, when it came to Tinder. When I first moved up here, I hopped on Tinder. Yeah, and I don't mean like going on just fucking a bunch of women. I did end up meeting a girl, and we dated for almost 4 years. I want to say 3-4 years. Yeah, and it was awesome. It was great, and so it does have its benefit, but it's like, you're really sifting, and it's a time waster. And I feel like you say, the human to human contact of meeting someone in public, and then you're not sitting there texting and totally guessing their tone or any of that. Yeah. Like me and you having this conversation, we're able to put together a lot more about us as people than we would. Being like, hey, Shannon, how are you? Yeah. And you'd be like, okay, this could be a fucking maniac on the
Yeah, totally. This, and I had 2 kids. I was going to university full time. I was just trying to keep things together, right? And I didn't have time for that, And I just didn't have time for it. So it was 2 years that I hadn't been touched by a man, or there were a couple indiscretions, and then I got involved with the sex trade. So it probably worked out well. I became really popular really fast because I hadn't been touched by a man.
Really? You would think it would be the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Right?
You'd think.
And you figure you know what? I'm pretty good at this. I might as well get paid for it.
Yeah, you would think.
But then here you are, you haven't been touched by a man in 2 years.
I didn't even get asked out for a cup of coffee by a half-decent guy in a 2-year period. Yeah.
Was it just, from these dating websites and all that?
I was only on a dating website for about 2 weeks, and I used to work with a lot of guys, and they used to joke around and be like, hey, that guy hit on you, and I was just oblivious. I didn't know that's
so
what
essentially
was going.
You're saying you have a dude brain.
I guess so. I'm like, what?
Zipping by you.
I had a lot on the go, right? I didn't notice these things.
That does sound like a lot. You got kids to take care of at university. Yeah. Going to school alone is just enough stress to cripple most.
Yeah, it is. It can be, yeah. But I made it through, so that's all good. Thank goodness.
Yeah, I got a degree out of the whole thing.
Yeah, totally.
Now, when we did the pre-interview, you were telling me some crazy stories. And one I would love to talk about again is your first out call.
Oh, yes. Oh, my first out call, yeah.
So, I guess before we start, to describe it, out call is outside of
an out call, I work independently now a lot, and I do work at one studio occasionally, right? But I work independently a lot now, just because it gives me quite a bit more flexibility. And however, when I first started, one of these ladies that I started with, she'd been doing this for quite some time. And so one day she was like, okay, listen, you're going to do an out call with me.
Right.
All right. And we're going to go and see this guy that I know. And he wants us to stay for 2 or 3 hours or something like that. Right. And I'm like, okay. And I'm completely nervous, totally, I'm like, this is so far out. And she's like, you need to calm down and just chill out. Right. And I'm like, oh my God. And so.
Game day.
Yeah, and I'm like, so anyway, I go to this motel, so it's what you would imagine in one of these movies, right? You're like a motel
you're
in Alberta.
Yeah, you're describing exactly what everybody's
totally thinking, right? And I'm with this woman, and she doesn't tell me too much about this, right? And anyway, we go and see this guy, And he's an older gentleman. He's worked in the oil patch for quite some time, and I think he did a lot of partying in his day. And anyway, he's drinking and he's smoking and anyhow, she showed up and she was like, "I bought you some new lingerie," and I was like, "Okay." And anyway, he wanted us to all wear matching lingerie, including himself. And so,
maybe this was my grandfather.
Maybe it was. You never know. You never know. And anyway, he had like this super masculine job and all these tickets and everything, but he liked to wear lingerie with escorts. Okay, and she hands me. Anyway, I'm helping him put these stockings on, and it's very awkward because we have matching garter belts and things like.
The guy likes to be sexy from time to time.
Yeah, exactly. And so anyway, she hands me a beer and she's like, "Drink this." And I'm like, okay. And I thought, this is odd. So I drank this beer and she's like, it's towards the end of the session. And I'm like, this is all, and I can't even talk because I'm so nervous with this whole scenario. I've never seen a man in women's clothing before, except on TV maybe, right? And I'm trying to make conversation with him a little bit, but I can't really talk, and I'm trying to take all of this in, and there's cigarette smoke, and she's talking away to him, and I'm like looking at her like, how do you get used to this,
Yeah, 100%.
And then she's like, talking me up to him, right? And and then she's like, "And Shannon's gonna urinate on you. I've got a special treat for you. Shannon's gonna urinate on you this time." And I'm like, I'm going to what? And she hadn't told me any of this. But anyway, she's like, took me into the bathroom. She's like, "This is how it's going to go down." Okay. And she's super stern with me. And, so she got it all set up and the places him in the bathtub. And I'm standing over him. She's like, "You're going to put your foot here. You're going to put your foot here, and you're going to urinate all over him." And I'm like, trying to I can't quite comprehend this, right? And so she sets it all up, and I'm like, that's like the urine is not going to happen. Like, so she turns on a tap, and she's like, "Focus on the water, Shannon." And we're not leaving until this is done. And so anyway, this all happens, and he's pretty drunk, and he's still wearing this lingerie, and she turns on the shower and cleans him up, and I'm just like, I still, even thinking back, I'm like, this is the strangest situation I've ever been in. Like, I can't tell anybody about this because it's so unusual, compared to like previous experience.
I pissed on a man last night.
Yeah, and it's a thing.
How was your Saturday, Shannon?
I know, and I was like, oh my God, and that's a common thing. It's people want that service, so.
It's probably more common than you think.
It's a lot more common than anybody would think, and quite honestly, I have to say that when guys get a hold of me for some of these more kind of extreme services, I'm kind of honored that they trust me to do that, because it's probably something they're not getting at home, or you're not going to find that often, and it's a safe environment, and so I'm kind of I'm kind of honored that somebody would trust me with that sort of thing, and it's not ever going to go further than me, so that part's kind of cool in some ways.
Yeah, because that's probably a tough thing to bring up to, your wife of 25 years, isn't it? I would think.
That you want a good fisting or something, right?
Listen, honey.
Yeah.
I'm watching you stuff the turkey, and I'm thinking to myself, that would be great on me. And
exactly.
How do you bring that up?
Exactly.
It's the holiday season. We're in lockdown. Let's get a little weird.
Exactly. So, yeah, I think... Yeah, I think about my exes, and I don't think they'd bring that up to me.
No?
No, I don't think so.
Maybe now, once they find...
If they knew I was Shannon Sweet, maybe now. But
maybe now they're like,
at
this whole time,
I could have dressed like a woman.
Yeah, this
all
lady
day.
that I've been dating for all these years.
Yeah.
Meanwhile.
Yeah, the mother of my children.
Yeah. This onion, if I would have just peeled it back a few more layers. We could have made this work.
Yeah, exactly. I would have been satisfied.
Oh, man. Yeah, it seems like that is something that you'd have to almost reach out, and it's almost in a way like I could see why dudes do that, because it's like, I don't need her looking at me like a
freak,
fucking wingnut.
Yeah, and I think from what I've kind of seen, like there's a lot of really unhappy relationships out there.
I can only imagine, and this whole pandemic and lockdown is probably just bringing it all out. Hey?
I think it is. I think there's a lot of people. Definitely the first. I noticed a lot of different friends of mine, stuff that were in different relationships for a long time. They ended relationships towards the end, right?
Yeah.
And just really reevaluated some of their life decisions.
Oh, big time. I mean, when you got a lot of time to sit and think, I think...
And look at another person.
Yeah, and really get to know them for who they truly are. Because it's easy. Once you get distracted by day-to-day things, even your fucking cell phone can distract you from so much. And then once that's taken away, and once you have to sit and just like...
with yourself. Yeah. And really think about what you're doing and where you're going.
Mm-hmm. I think this whole pandemic thing has put a lot into perspective for a lot of people.
I think so. I agree with you. Yeah. For sure. For sure. So it's interesting. And then they've also have time to go to my website and different things. And then next thing you know, they're calling, so
100%. Yeah. Like all it takes is for, one click and you're like, well, for fuck me. This whole time, I could
have been tied to a bed. And,
had the shit beaten out of me.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of trying to convince the wife, like, hey, listen.
To hit me harder.
Yeah. Where Shannon can come in and give you the beatdown of a lifetime.
Yes. Yes, if you'd like. And then use some coconut oil on you afterwards,
Yeah, soothe the wounds and then give you a pat on the ass. And
away you go.
Yeah, a Tootsie Pop and off you go.
Back into your life, back into your day.
Do you do any of that? Do you do any of the dominatrix kind of stuff?
I do a bit. I've had some training by a dominatrix, and I have a male escort friend in Calgary, and we've known one another. It's very strange, in another life, and then met one another again in the sex trade, which was very unusual. And anyway, so
you knew him.
I knew him outside, and we didn't really realize that until later on in another part of the country.
Isn't it insane?
Totally insane.
Me and you were having this conversation as you, as Shannon Sweet. Maybe we've interacted you as your normal being somewhere, sometime. That's insane. Like, who knows?
It was, and it was like a remote area of Canada too, like very remote, and very strange. And we didn't put it together, right? And anyhow, he got a hold of me, and I have some formal training in like types of body-based therapy and things. And so he knew that.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. What do you mean by like body-based therapy?
Like just different energy release. Okay. Using like different types of breath work and so they're kind of holistic therapies. Oh, okay. Okay. Maybe a little hippie almost, but
yeah. I kind of make fun of that stuff.
Yeah, I know. I know. So like some Eastern medicine with regards to like where energy is in the body. And so he knew that about me, and he's a dom, and he really wanted to do this training called bondage training, right? So he got a hold of me, and he was like, Shannon, I found this training, and I've asked some other people, and would you commit to it? Like, this woman needs, she needs commitment of 2 people before she'll come out from Toronto. I have these dates booked, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, okay. And I didn't look it up. I didn't look into it or anything. I just trusted his opinion. It was kind of a high price point to do this training, but I was like, okay, I'll do it. And so I, committed to doing it, and he was all excited. And so I ended up doing this training, and when I met this woman, I'm like, holy smokes, this is the real deal. Like, she's lifestyle dom. Like, she lives this life. It was like, very serious training for, and so it's a type of like bondage, like a light bondage, but the person is bound to a table, and there's it's a sensory deprivation experience. And so there's all kinds of different implements that are used on people, so it totally heightens your body awareness. And yeah. So anyway, I got to do this, and part of it was an ongoing training component. So I've gotten to meet different people who are certified in this from all over the world. So it's very interesting, and they pull out different tools that they've, and talk about different scenarios and this and that.
When you say tools, what do you mean by that? Like ropes?
Yeah, like different ropes.
The tape and shit?
Yeah, like we'll have like really high-end people who are involved in like rope work in San Francisco, in the leather district, and that do courses in the States. And so I have access to all these awesome resources, right? And they'll come on and like they know somebody that's in it, and this is how you tie this and do that and blah blah blah. And there's different types of like the demonstrations of rope work or like just different sensory deprivation sort of things.
Like I'm thinking like the tanks. Or are you thinking like
no? So
those rooms that are basically silent.
Is that with bondage, people are bound to a table. So there's definitely different like bondage aspects of it. So they're bound to a table. They have a headset on, and and their eyes are covered with a mask.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they can't really move that well, and so then you use a bunch of different tools on them.
I feel like somebody like you hear more than anything is like somebody that's always in like a position of power. Really likes to be in these
vulnerable.
Very vulnerable positions.
Where they can just hand things
over.
Is that
what you've noticed?
I've noticed that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot. Where they can just or they have like incredible pressure in their life, and they can just hand things over for a few hours.
Let somebody else. Here.
Yeah.
I just need you to fuck me up.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because it heightens it gets people out of their brains and into their bodies. So they become really aware of what's going on.
Have you ever done one of those sensory deprivation tanks before?
No, but I've been invited to. So
I did one when this all kind of started. I did one last winter.
Yeah.
And it's interesting.
Is it? Yeah. I think they're closed right now.
Yeah, they definitely are. This was right before the pandemic hit, and me and the missus went and did one, and it was crazy because it's like you are just left there with your thoughts, and if you can like wipe it all away, it's the most relaxing time. Like we did one for an hour, and by the minute 15, you're going crazy. But if you start to figure out your own noodle for a second,
surrender,
and you're just like just relax, and finally like it helped tremendously.
Really? So it was super relaxing.
Yeah. So I guess to say that's probably similar in a sense to that, except there's a little bit more added where you're almost focusing more on body parts.
Yeah, focusing more on body parts and focusing on like I'll use different textures, different temperatures, different
Is that to like excite the nerves more so?
And it's so the brain they're trying to figure out like what is that going across my skin. So it's stopping like where they are in their and what is going across my skin, and staying with that and then sort of anticipating the next thing.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's very interesting, and it's like a reset for a lot of people.
Do you find like enjoyment of doing that too, or is it more so just a service that you offer?
I've done it because I've done it a few times. For me, I think it takes me a little bit to get out of my head because I don't let clients tie me up. That's never been something that I offer at all. And
because I feel like that would be a huge no-no, and there's like that's a trust thing, especially when it comes to sex. Even if it's with your like partner or your girlfriend, boyfriend, when you're tying somebody up, you're in like the most vulnerable state you possibly could be in. Totally.
So I have I have a lot of clients that they've wanted to try bondage stuff, and I've seen them before, and they're like, I want to try it with you. I want to do this. I want to try. So fortunate that way. I have that.
Like, do you find like yourself in a place where you find enjoyment more so than they might at times? Like when you have a client that comes in, do you find like maybe I enjoy this client more than maybe he enjoys me.
Has
that ever been a thing?
That's, you know what, I genuinely like a lot of my clients. I really do, and so there's some that I really like them as people. And if you mean like, if I like maybe had a crush on a client or something,
more so like you find more enjoyment out of like
being around them.
Yeah, maybe it's the sex or it's just the relationship, and it's almost like you feel like you're robbing them almost, in like to put that into like clear context.
I'm trying. Like I think it's mutual. I like to think it's mutual. And probably some, like I'm probably a little zany, right? And some of the stuff I talk about is, a little out there for some guys. But I have, I have a lot of regular clients, so they seem to come back, And the ones that don't, then that's okay.
Yeah.
It has happened like, maybe once or twice in like 8 years, I've run into somebody where I'm like, wow, I'd go out with that guy. Like, I probably enjoyed the session like way more than they. And then I was like, wait a minute, Shannon, this guy's like, he doesn't want a girlfriend. Get it together. Get a hold of yourself. Are you ovulating or what?
That's kind of what I was asking.
Yeah,
is, finding yourself in a position of where you're
keep things in perspective. Yeah, you've got to. Yeah, you got to keep things in perspective. So it doesn't. Yeah, and I'm like, it's a rule. Right. And, but it hasn't happened that often, and I think probably like there's something in the, going on with the moon and, my hormones or something.
Oh, you're a moon person.
No, I'm not. Not too much.
Not too much. I do get enjoyment out of that. I think it's, me and my buddy Tanner always make fun of that kind of.
Really?
And I think that there maybe has something. There is. Like, obviously, if it's changing the tide and everything.
Yeah.
The gravitational pull, because like, let's be honest, I remember full moons being at the bar and it was completely insane.
Yeah, totally. I think police calls go up and EMS calls go up at a full moon, don't they? And like emergency rooms, they know. Like
there's got to be something there.
Yeah,
we don't know what it is, but it's probably
something.
There's something.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
which is funny. That's hilarious. I won't make fun of you for any of that. Like. Getting back to almost like the crazier stories of all this, like what's something that is very vivid in your mind? And, like, something that would really kind of shocked even you to be in that situation.
So all right. So I when I started, I don't know how long I was doing it for, and I had this client, and one day he made this proposal to me to just be his exclusive girlfriend. He'd pay me to do that, right? Travel with him and things like that. So I'm like, that sounds like a great deal, right? Like I'm going to make, good enough, right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, I did this. We had a little bit of stuff in common, which was nice, and it was a challenging relationship to say the least, which is probably why he was in the position of paying a woman to be his girlfriend, you know? But anyhow, he had it in his mind that he wanted to do a relationship workshop for like, not for a weekend. This was like 5 or 6 days.
Like one of those ones that you like fly away with
you go, you like go, we went to this resort. Right. I think there was 8 other couples there. And I couldn't get away easily. Okay, I have to emphasize that. So anyway, I was like, yeah, sure, which is something that I do. I say yes to things without researching them, like this bondage deal, and,
You're a yes woman.
I'm kind of like, yeah, it's life experience. Why not? Eventually you're going to be on your deathbed and wishing you would have tried this, right? So I'm like,
Thank you.
Sure.
I'm glad somebody else lives their life
I know,
this.
And then you get there and it's like, what did I say yes to? Like, holy shit. Like next thing you know, you're peeing on a guy in a bathtub and you're all wearing matching lingerie, and so I was like, this guy's paying me a lot of money. I'd gone to different U.S. cities with him, and I was like, yeah, okay, he wants to do this relationship workshop. I'll do this. I didn't think it would be this intense, but anyway, I get there and and they're not short days. They were like 9 or 10 hours a day. And I don't, it was Shannon Sweet's hell, okay? And not only was I with somebody that, quite honestly, I didn't particularly like, because he may not have been the most stable person on the face of the planet, which is fine. Like, I can, you know, like, it is what it is, right? And I like to think I have quite a bit of patience, and that it is what it is, and I'm pretty kind. But anyway, I where this place was located, it was really hard to leave. Like, physically, it was hard to get to an airport, to get on an airplane, to like run away. So it's like a
Bora Bora or some
sort
shit.
of, yes. Yeah. And so it was involved. And so anyway, I was there with him and probably 7 or 8 other couples who'd been together substantially longer than we had been. And it was like, you know, when you have these life realizations where like the sky opens up and light comes down, and it's like everything is very, very clear from that point forward. You know, like if I ever had any questions about what type of relationship I would not ever have or tolerate in my existence,
it's this one.
It's the people that are in here. You know, it was all these men that were beaten down, could never please their wives. And they were coming to, and the wife, this is totally, like, one woman was complaining, her biggest complaint was that she had, why do I have to continuously remind him to shovel snow when it snows? That was the complaint. That was the issue and this poor man was like completely defeated.
God.
It was horrible. It was horrible.
Can't imagine.
It was absolutely horrible. And, because I was like, it was really clear to me there that you could see all these control dramas going on. And then I'm with this guy that I think was trying to like get me to like not like get me to commit to him so I'd be his actual girlfriend, and maybe he wouldn't have to pay me anymore or something. I don't know what was going on there. But this went on for like 6 days, and it was literally like 10 hours a day. And I was like, if I get out of here, like a lot, like I will commit my life to really looking into what a functional relationship is, because I don't ever want to be any of these people in this room, you know? And I had this guy, you know, in the whole thing, like the guy that I was with went through like these ups and downs, and like I was kind of detached from the situation. Like I was still in the role of an escort, right? But I was like watching him go up and down emotionally. And
in these 6 days?
In these 6 days.
Really?
It was, and we were working with a counselor, and I was like, and then the question comes up as to, where did you guys meet? You know, and so he then outed me to the counselor and the facilitators of this, not to the other members of the group, but
of being an escort.
Of being an escort. So I'm like, this makes it really difficult. Like, where do we go from here? You know,
obviously this relationship is very clear.
It's very clear, and became more clear as the week as the week went on. So that was a very strange situation that I had gotten myself into. And it was like when you take like a hallucinogenic, you can't stop the trip.
No.
You know? Then that's what it was like.
You're locked in.
I was locked in.
Dang.
I was locked in. It was a living hell.
Man, oh man. And it's so funny to think like just you sitting there and listening to these women being like, every time he won't shovel the snow. And
he's having an emotional affair, you know? And I'm like, well, you're not very nice to him. Like, quite honestly, I'd be having an emotional affair if I had to live with you, you know, with some lady on, 5,000 miles away.
100%. Do you find like now seeing this side of the world and being from the line of like line of work and the men that come to you, and like you said, like a lot of them are coming to you for this like emotional kind of like put me together a little bit. Like
some contact.
Yeah, a little bit of contact, and it's a positive experience at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And now when you find that what these dudes are kind of like looking for, and what I feel like it's a reoccurring thing.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself knowing a lot more about men being from the line of work that you're in now?
I think so. I'm definitely, when I initially started this, I had incredible amounts of shame. I had a shame around being a single parent. You know, I had shame for being like a single woman, you know, and I had a lot of shame working in the sex trade, you know, and that was, lots of shame. And
where do you think that like shame came from?
I think it was just, you know, conditioning from society. Yeah. You know, that like, you know, hookers are this way and hookers do this and they have no morals and they have no ethics. There's no integrity there. No one's going to want you after you've been in the sex trade, et cetera. And those were all beliefs that, you know, had been indirectly instilled, you know. And anyway, I somehow, you know, shortly after, like within a year of working in the sex trade, I got... I was accepted to go to an ayahuasca retreat. Okay. Perfect. Yeah.
Hell so,
and this is I'm somebody that's like,
partying.
Oh yeah. I'm like, naproxen, I don't know if I need it for a headache. Like I'll just go without, you know? And then I went and tried and spent 4 days doing the most powerful hallucinogenic in the world. Right.
I can't even hate on you because I'm the same way. My mom used to laugh because I wouldn't take Tylenol. I'm very against ibuprofen and all that. Yeah. And I'd be like, and I was, I'm cutting you off horribly here.
No,
I'm on page with you with that. I was like, oh, there's always a natural remedy for something.
Yeah, totally.
So I'm like, I can't shit on the hippie stuff too much. But then again, I would be an idiot. And I'd do all this natural remedies and all this, and then go pile about 4 grams of coke into me in a weekend. You know, like it just, that's my balance.
Yeah, totally. One of the things, you know, when I had to fill out all this paperwork and do an interview before I could go and do this ayahuasca ceremony. And
where was this, by the way?
This one was in BC and like near Vancouver. So I drove from here to Vancouver and they asked me like, they vet you pretty hard, you know. And they were like, you know, how many days do you want to do? And I'm like, well, how many days can I do? And they're like, well, you can do 4. The ceremony's 4 days, you know. But some people do 2. Or I'm like, oh, sign me up for all 4. So
go hard or go home.
Go hard or go. And I'm like, I don't
Shannon
really know.
Leaves no prisoners.
With ayahuasca. And so, you know, I'd watch some videos on it, and these different friends of mine who had done this before, I'd ask them questions. So I thought I was pretty prepared, right? And anyway, I go by myself and I do ayahuasca for 4 days. And in all of the stuff that I saw doing ayahuasca, one of the things that was addressed was the sex trade. And there were visions.
They addressed it, or
no?
You internally
addressed internally something addressed it. Right. You know, and it showed me, you know, the balancing of masculine and feminine energy. And it just, I think how I interpreted it was that it became really clear that, you know, we need one another, you know, to balance things out, right? And it was from there that, you know, my work in the sex trade just became way more, you know, fluid. And I just
no
had...
pun intended.
No pun intended. Fluid is a good thing. Fluid is a very good thing. But no pun intended. I saw my
opportunity and I shot.
And, you know, I've done a couple other ayahuasca ceremonies since then that kind of showed me some different things with regards to relationships and relationships with men, for sure. And you know, it was really helpful, I think, in my life. And it's probably one of the reasons I've been able to stay in the sex trade as long as I have been, you know. Yeah,
because I feel like, you know, carrying that weight of shame, and like a lot of people do it and they don't take any necessary steps, you know. Like even a year and a half ago, I was going through probably the shittiest time of my life, even though the perception of this whole Danger Cats thing and all that, it seemed like I was in a good place, but mentally I was just the worst I've ever been. I was doing a ton of drugs, I was being very toxic to myself, and not taking charge and command. And so like it's something like that, to have it put into perspective of like, hey, what I'm doing isn't wrong. There's nothing wrong. I shouldn't be shameful about it. That definitely cleared a lot of smoke for you then. Hey?
It did. And, you know, I went because I'm always doing these things. I always joke with my kids. Like, I don't get up in the morning intending to ruin your life. Okay, I'm trying. You know? And, you know, they seem to be abnormally well adjusted members of society. So something has gone pretty right, unless I'm completely off base and, you know, in denial about how rotten my children are. But I initially went to, like, you know, get some clarity around raising children and this and that. And then and no one, or, you know, I have like 3 friends outside of the sex trade that know what I do, you know,
Is
so
that because, like, was that initially because, like, you felt that shame and all that? You
yeah,
didn't
totally.
Want
and
knowing?
I didn't want anybody knowing. I didn't think I was going to stay in it as long as I have. And also, I didn't want to make it a big political, like, woman empowerment thing. Like, I just didn't. I didn't want to do that. And also, I just didn't want to have these conversations with people who were in relationships where they were really sexually suppressed, and, you know, these assumptions that it's like a really shady, like, undercover sort of thing, and what are your clients like and stuff, you know?
Yeah, it's almost like, I feel like that conversation would be like when you go back to your hometown.
Yeah.
It's that constant, like, small talk that, you know, you just have over and over again. And yeah. So I can see why you don't want.
And, like, my clients, like, I'm ultra sensitive to their privacy, like, big time.
Like, if you've seen them in public, you're just kind of like, I won't say hi.
Yeah, like some.
Has that ever happened?
Yeah, it is. It has happened, and you know, there was one guy I knew, and he was single and on and on. Great guy, like, great sense of humor. And anyway, I ended up at the airport. I was going somewhere. His gate was right next to mine, and I saw him. He saw me, and he didn't know if he should approach me or not. And I had my work phone with me, and I could see he was all like, I knew he wanted to talk to me, you know, and he was cool with that. And so I just texted him, and then I had a coffee with him and stuff, you know. But yeah, like, I go and I have so many old regular clients now that, you know, there's guys that I know, like, they would be friends with me even if I wasn't providing this service, you know. So, and I go places with clients and stuff too. So, you know, it's part of the gig. Part of the gig now, yeah. Relatively normal, I guess.
Yeah.
Normal looking.
Because it's a taboo industry at the end of the day.
So taboo. So taboo.
For what reason, I don't know. Because, like, to me, I say, like, I'm all for it. Like, the whole, I've made it very clear, I'm all for the OnlyFans or the prostitution. My funny story, I've told this on the podcast a couple of times. My grandfather brought a prostitute to Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, I've been to funerals.
Yes, that's what it was I wanted to bring up. Like, my grandpa didn't even bat an eye about it either. And
they probably got along great.
Yeah, and it was funny to me because, like, that was, like, my first initial reaction of somebody in sex work, and I didn't really, like, clue in right away.
No.
It was just like, yeah, my grandpa just doesn't give a shit.
No, he probably genuinely liked her. I have clients that would probably love to do that.
He's a massive fan of prostitution. He said he's like, he doesn't care. He goes, yeah, I don't give a shit.
No.
He's like, so it's like instilled, like, this open-mindedness since a young age.
Yeah.
And, like, I thank him for that because he's always been like, fuck, who cares? None of these fuckers, what, they're going to come to your funeral, cry about it? No, who gives a shit? You live your life.
I might know your grandpa.
Yeah, that's why I joked earlier there. Yeah. You were probably peeing on him.
Yeah, probably. Having a beer with him.
Yeah,
after.
more than, and you know what? The old fucker would just say, yeah, she definitely pissed on me. He wouldn't give a shit. He would love it. Yeah, like he thinks it's, like, what I'm doing, he's been, like, the biggest fan of, like, I've been like that.
It's awesome.
Yeah, he like, anytime I have troubles, I always call him. And, like, he tells me all these stories. And, like, again, he's a very passionate man, and but he's a womanizer at the same time. So he's a complicated human, but once you get to know him, you definitely, like, it's funny. So, like, prostitution is, like, we've talked about it, and he goes, who gives a shit?
Yeah, totally.
Why do you care? He goes, what the fuck do you care?
Yeah, I know. I had to, no, I didn't have to. I worked for a studio in Fort Mac, and I go up there once in a while. And one of the things that you had to do when you initially go is you have to do an interview with the RCMP.
Okay.
And they sort of vet you to make sure you're not being trafficked or, you know, you're not under the influence or whatever. And they also ask you if you'd like a hair sample, to use a hair sample in case you go missing, because missing prostitutes are, you know, it does happen, right? Like, I think
for sure.
Yeah, I think there's 21 unsolved mysteries or unsolved cases in Edmonton or more, including there was a lady that was murdered within the last 3 or 4 months, I think. And they got the guy, thank goodness. But unfortunately, she was murdered. And so, it was really, this is the real thing. And, I had to go. I was instructed, you go to the front desk, you ask for such and such, whoever, from RCMP officer, right? And the lady at the front was like, well, what are you here for? And I'm like, well, I'm going to be working here in Fort Mac. And, well, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm an escort and I'm working for this establishment or whatever. And she totally looked down on me, And I talked to the lady that owned the studio and I'm like, this is my experience. And the woman kind of gave me a hard time, right? And she was like, you know what? When she's paying your bills, then she can have something to say,
100%.
about that. And she's like, if they have anything to say, if they can't say it to your face, then it's not worth shit. Do what you do. Tell them to go.
Fuck them.
Go fuck themselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's Shannon Sweet's favorite thing. It's like, oh, go fuck yourself. Shut the fuck up.
Exactly. A little confrontation never hurt nobody.
No, exactly. You have to check it out with people until and then they eventually just leave you alone. Right?
Yeah. Because if you would have said something that got in her face right there, she would have cowered instantly.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. But there was definitely some judgment going on, which I like to joke and translate into, I know you wish you were in my position.
100%.
Honey.
Yeah. Are you kidding me? The moment you said male escort, I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if I could do that.
Throw an ad up and let's see what happens.
Yeah, I imagine that. I would like to think that there is a market for this, but I
this
could
gift.
also, this gift that God gave me.
Yeah, my male escort friend, it took a while he's a straight male escort, and he had some issues initially trying to communicate to women that it was okay to contact him, that he wasn't a creep and et cetera, et cetera. I joke that he's a creep, but he's not a creep. not any particular sort of creep, but and so now things are up and running for him. And
it's everybody always jokes about being a porn star or even a male escort, but I feel like it would be really fucking hard.
It is. It's not. It's a lot of work.
100%.
It's a lot of work. There's a lot that goes into it behind the scenes.
Man, sure, on the outside it looks shiny and bright and being I would love to fuck for a living, but then
oh yeah.
Oh man,
oh yeah.
It'd be
there's a woman that I worked for, and she met her husband doing this, and they are I'm really grateful to have that kind of just example, I guess, of what I think is a pretty high functioning relationship, right? And I think he became a male escort for a while. Right. And I talked to him about this. And I mean, they adore one another. They're completely respectful of one another. They're lovely human beings. And they work together on, they've created a great life. And from what I've seen, and it's really, really nice to see. And I think for a while he was a male escort. Right. And I remember talking to him about it. And he was like, this is so hard. This is so hard, so much work, and just, keeping everything together in your head, and 100%. Being compassionate towards another human being and, and non-judgmental and looking at yourself, why would I judge this person for this, and keeping your own mental health.
Yeah, just keeping it kosher the whole time would be...
Yeah, totally.
Because even there's sometimes where people say something and I'm like, what the fuck are you thinking? And you can't do that. You're supposed to be, you know, I guess maybe you can. In your circumstances.
There's ways to phrase things.
Yeah, to phrase it in a more positive manner. Yeah. But even coming to you for, hey... Be a little more stern with me. Get my shit together. What do I got to do? Why do I feel like I'm fucking up?
Yeah, and a guy's...
Shannon comes in, puts the fucking hammer
Well,
down.
I just see things, and I'm like, listen, tell me if I'm overstepping my boundary, overstepping here. However, this is what... Can I share this with you? I ask permission first, right? And I'll share what I've seen. or observe about their lives. And you know what? There's guys that take that information, they take notes, they go out into the world, they start working on their lives, and I'll see them, a couple months later, and, they give me an update on where they are, and they just don't have that,
Yeah. And even for someone like yourself, like you said, you have like therapy courses and all that kind of background. So it's like you take this a step further than what some girls may.
Yeah, and I realized at the beginning of this, and after some kind of shitty relationships, where I'm like, I got to be more conscious about who I have in my life in an intimate as a boyfriend, right? Around my children, or around me. And, and I realized, I'm like, I don't have any idea as to what a functional relationship is. Like that's never been demonstrated anywhere. There was some sort of quasi, and then I look back on it and I'm like, that was kind of fucked up. Like that's my example. Like no wonder I ended up in some fucked up situations with men, right? Like,
yeah.
And so I really... the last several years for sure, and it started with ayahuasca, where I really started looking at what is a functional relationship and my part in that, in interacting with men, and working on myself and getting my own shit sorted out, and not using a man as a therapist or expecting them to fix your problems. Like, no, you got to have somebody that you process with outside of that relationship and bring your best self forward,
right. Do you find like... now that you've been like in the industry for a minute now, and you're looking and you're seeing like the culture around sex now is probably it's changed drastically over the years. And, like it's more glamorized and everything, and like and like yourself, like you're a very put together woman that has an understanding of an emotional side. There's like a deeper connection more so than just paying somebody to come fuck me.
Yeah.
Now, with like the way the world is changing and everything, and you're viewing it now as like with experience in the industry, and you're seeing like what's kind of happening now with social media and all this, do you find like it's better or worse? I
think with both males and females, I think there's a lot more of a disconnect as to what actual connection is and respect of one another. And I see a lot of men that are beaten down. I see a lot of women that are beaten down.
Yeah, I'm seeing it on social media more and more and more. It's just like people airing their bullshit rather than like trying to fix it themselves.
Yeah, work on yourself first,
It seems like it's just an easy outlet and a short Band-Aid or it's like a Band-Aid on a broken bone, where you just like, you throw this out there like on TikTok or whatever, Instagram. TikToks. Yeah, that tire fire of an app. But I see so many times to be like, it's like some guy crying, and it's like, oh, my wife left me, and it's a Band-Aid on a broken bone, because you get these 1,000 comments being like, you can get through it, and some people can use that in a positive way and then like forward their life. But I think like for me personally, I view it more as like it's a Band-Aid on a broken bone.
It almost is, yeah. And I think, like sometimes I think people get into these relationships where, there's been a trauma before or something when you date, and then you end up with somebody who's treating you like garbage in a garbage relation. It's a garbage relationship. Yeah. Like I've said to some of my clients when they bring me pictures of ladies that they've met off wherever, and I'm like, she's not good enough. Like, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, why would they ever tolerate this? Like, they're a pretty quality guy, And then you ask them about, what happened before, and you see these guys like work on themselves, like start resolving some of that stuff and feeling better about themselves. They would never tolerate that ever again, moving forward. But it's, just like the games, right? Like these games that people are playing.
Yeah.
And they're kind of lame once you catch on to it. There's no charge there.
No.
For me, anyway.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah, even like for myself, as like I'm getting older, like I like the flashy objects just like don't.
The shiny objects.
Yeah, it doesn't click for me. Like it's just like there's much more.
Yeah.
And it may sound like gay to say,
no,
so to speak, but like, You know, as you get older, when you're a young guy, man, all you're thinking about is fucking drinking, hanging out with your bros and stuff. But as you get older, like, things slow down a little bit more. You kind of soak it in.
Yeah, and I think at the bottom of it, even just going and, you know, the act of finding an escort, going and having sex and everything, I think at the bottom of all of that, there's that need for connection. Yeah. Right? And I think that drives a lot. And people aren't aware that that's actually what's going on. Yeah. You know that, and with women, it's like, if I'm shiny enough, I'm going to draw them in, and they're not going to leave this shininess, you know, and there's going to be connection there. Yeah.
Like you strike me more as like a woman that is going to be like your clients are more like they're men looking for, rather than these coked out idiots that are like 3:30 in the
even
morning.
Even the coked out idiots are looking for connection.
I guess you are. Yeah, that's a good point, because like even if it's like fuck, I need like something.
Yeah, I've lay there like been hired for like 6 hours just to lay there and rub somebody's back.
Really?
And have the coke dealer show up. Wow. Oh, yes.
That's crazy.
I'll put that one on my resume. You know? Just...
Everything's going to be okay.
Everything's going to be okay. Yeah. Life is going to be okay.
Yeah, that is a good point. I've never really thought about that, because it's usually, well, you're railed out and you're like, escorts. Because, like, no, you're not talking no girl out of bed to come and just, like, hang out with you at 4 a.m. as you're blown out of your skull.
Yeah. Well, I do some traveling with this also, and, you know, I go to Fort St. John, right? And I like Fort St. John. It's a beautiful drive. I know people there now. I get caught up on what's being built in town, and, you know, I like these client friends, right? So I get updates on their life and everything. And, and I think the drive there is beautiful, and it's kind of like the Wild West, right? And I remember the first time I went, it was very busy, and I didn't know if it was going to be busy or not. And so I did go on an out call, and I got called to this hotel room. This guy was bugging me, and I got called to this hotel room, and he wanted me to spend the night. And that's like quite a bit of money, right? And there's substances all over the room, cigarette smoke. The guy's out of it. Yeah. He's showing me his truck from he's showing me like assets, you know. So I guess in men speak, it's like they like you, you know? Yeah. And he was out of it. And so I stayed an hour, and I was like, listen, you know, I'm not taking all your money, because he was trying to give me a large sum of money to stay with him. I'm like, you need to go to sleep and then get a hold of me tomorrow. And I think he realized later on, like maybe reflected on this, and did contact me the next day and asked if he could take me out for supper, and basically showed up at my hotel like the bow tie on and hair brushed and everything.
Cleaned himself up a little.
Yeah, cleaned himself up a little. But he was wild. And then, you know, I've known him since then. Like, trust me. You know, I'm like, I'm not taking your thousands of dollars here to sit with you. You're out of your mind. You can't even but it's connection, you know? At the end of the day, it's connection.
Yeah. It's refreshing to like hear the other side of it. Yeah. Because like you do, like initially, like any dude is going to be sitting there being like, oh, whatever, this, you know, talking shit on you or whatever, some other sex worker, and not understand where you come from on it. Yeah. And like, again, like I say, like I think like it should be legal. There's nothing wrong with it. To me personally, it doesn't affect my life. It doesn't, you know, you chose this path. You know, I have seen, you know, ads for, you know, women who have had horrible experiences in sex work, and and I, you know, I respect they've had these experiences and stuff. I've been, and other people that I know who are involved with the sex trade, a few of them, you know, they're pretty self-responsible with regards to mental health and their own mental health, right? And processing this with a therapist, you know, so they can get, you know, some perspective on maybe bad situations, you know? And there's certainly like some very sad, overwhelming situations that you come across too, you know, and in getting perspective. And, you know, for me, I'm like, somebody gave me a book on forgiveness, right? And I'm like, oh, fuck, what the fuck is this? But anyway, I opened it up, and, you know, I read like a chapter, just randomly opened it up and just read like
couple paragraphs, and it was talking about radical forgiveness. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? So anyway, I read a little bit further, and it was, to forgive, having this mantra that forgive them for they do not know, and with that, like I'd had, some guys that like bumbling idiots almost, right? Not bumbling idiots, but I am now able to put myself in their shoes and be like, he's nervous and he's insecure. And, he needs some affection. Yeah. And, like, some kindness. Yeah. And it's so much easier for me to do now,
Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's definitely seeing this side of sex work. Like, obviously, I know a lot of dancers in the city and other girls that do all sorts of... I know of porn stars in the city. And then, like, even, like, when we were talking... prior, like the pre-interview, like I've met couples too that are like openly swingers, and those are some of the most secure relationships I've ever come across. Which is like, to anybody else, they would be like, "How the fuck can you do that?" Yes. But that's how they connect. That's how they get down. Like, there's nothing
that's
wrong
how they
with
get
it.
down.
I don't think like there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah. It's not.
It's clear boundaries on things, right? And like clear communication. And I have friends that are swingers too, and they seem pretty darn happy. Yeah,
you know? Every couple that I had an interaction with were like secure.
Cool.
They knew, they were just down with it. Like they just didn't care about too much. They didn't let anything affect them. Yeah, and they just seemed really secure. They had their shit together. Like some of them were like wealthy business owners. And even like yourself, if I seen you walking down the street, I would never suspect you do the things that you do. Yes. And even with them, I would see them in a public setting, and I would never, out of a million years, be able to pick and be like, those guys are freaks. Yeah. They are freaks.
I know. Yes. Yeah,
so
totally.
it's like, I guess the classic saying, never judge a book by its cover. You know what I mean? But
you never, ever know. You just never know.
And like it is. It's a different strokes for different folks. And even like your line of work is just so out there, and like it's so off the beaten path that some people just can't comprehend why the fuck would she do this?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I don't share it with very many people at all, at all. Because
other than the people that are going to listen to this podcast, now they know.
They'll be like, I think I know that woman.
I've heard of Shannon Sweet.
I think I know her.
She peed on my grandpa too.
I was fisted by that woman.
She ran me like a puppet.
For hours on end.
Oh man, it's always interesting, and it's great to hear like the other side of things. Like I wish I knew why what makes me tick sometimes, and like maybe there's somebody out there that could break that down for me. Yeah, but I'm also like now at a place where I'm a little more secure with my own personality and my like how I operate as a human, what I like, what I don't like. Yeah, I'm coming of that age now of 30 where I'm starting to really figure myself out. Yeah. Rather than just being this young guy trying to experience...
Just bumbling around.
Yeah. Trying to experience as much as I possibly can. Yes. To try and build something and figure out who the fuck, what the fuck.
Yeah. And where you're going.
Yeah. It definitely puts like things and be like, oh yeah. It's so funny too, like looking back, hey? Yeah. Like you now being in this line of work. Can you look back and be like, wow, I can't believe like I was there doing that?
There's, times I remember going into the studio, and there was a front door on White Avenue, and I was like, oh yeah, I have to go in. And I think that the whole world was looking at me. And I'm like, you know what? You get to a point where it's like, you're not that fucking important. Nobody's looking, And it's pretty humbling when you hit that point, And if you are, well, I'm like, like I walk around, I joke around, and I'll be like, do you know who the fuck I am? I'm Shannon fucking Sweet, okay? Out of my way, But, when you realize you're not, like, in the grand scheme of things, man, like, nobody's gonna,
there's, and it's like the online culture. Like, I laugh so much when people take these comments on social media personally. I did in the beginning because it was just so foreign to me. Yeah. And, like... now if somebody could tell me to kill myself, and I'd be like, well, that's just like
water off a duck's back.
Yeah. First off, you don't think I've heard that? Secondly, give me a recipe here. What do I gotta do? Yeah. Huh? You want a rope? Is there a bathtub involved in a razor? Like, what do you want? Like,
what does that look like to you?
Yeah, because if I do it,
I'm curious. What does that look like to you? Like, explain. Engage.
I want to make sure that I fulfill your fantasy.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah, that's like Shannon Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I don't. On occasion, you get texts, and friends of mine, we joke around that we get these horrible texts, and I'm like, where do people fucking find the time to text these awful, awful fucking things?
Insecurity. It has to be insecurity or something.
I don't know. I'm like, I think I think it does boil down, quite honestly, to another form of connection. Mm-hmm. I really do. Just to connect somehow, even if it's by text.
Yeah.
And that's what I attribute it to, I think.
So you kind of take anything negative and trying to see like a positive, like the silver lining of it. Is that like
I think this person just needs some more kindness in their life. If they're saying those things, like I would never would I say something like that to somebody. I have in the past. Yeah.
I think we all have. We can all agree,
far past, probably in a fit of rage, which happens not that often anymore. But to just contact some random person that you don't actually know, like that says more about that person than you.
100%.
Mm-hmm. I just delete, block. I call people. I'm like, that's really inappropriate. Like, it's inappropriate.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even I'm like, that's really inappropriate. I had some guy, I don't know, he texted me something. It was vulgar. And I'm like, please don't contact me again. That's really it's vulgar and it's inappropriate. Mm-hmm. And he was like, whoa. Usually they're like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I'm like, don't communicate with people like that, or with me anyway. Like, I'm not going to tolerate it. Well, it's ignorant. Don't. That's not hot.
Yeah. And I understand the brassness of this brand that I've that I've created.
Yeah.
And over time, I was a young guy and I was like, I had this envisioned myself lighting the world on fire.
Yes.
And I don't know what I was intended to do with it.
Yeah.
And as time went on, and once I cleaned myself up too, and I've noticed now I'm drawing a different audience. It's more of a pure kind of good group brass, hardworking kind of class men that just they just don't have something. You know what I mean? Like they don't. There's sports and there's so much to this, and it's starting to collectively build a group of good people.
Good people.
Yeah, they're
a
just
good following.
It's a good, hardworking class of people that just kind of, they just don't have a voice.
Yeah, totally.
Totally. And it's, especially with this podcast, I noticed the base core that listens to it are just some dudes that, they like drinking beer, hanging out, and it's not so much the snorting blow and being Motley Crue of the 80s anymore. It's these are men now. These are fathers, and they like the out there humor more so than they want that crazy
can see
fucking
themselves.
lifestyle. Yeah.
Yeah. They can see themselves.
It's a humorous brand more so than it will ever be.
Well, and it's aspects of Canadian life too, which attracted me to watching this. Where I'm like, I work with a lot of Americans, and they love Canadians. They love it. They can't get enough of Trailer Park Boys and Letterkenny and Uncle Hack now and stuff. And it's far out there, and it's a culture that a lot of the world's not familiar with in some ways. So it's nice to make fun of it almost, make light of it.
100%. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I'm just shooting a text here. I'm still listening. I can kind of.
You can do two things at once.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's. I don't know. I do.
Yeah.
I don't mean to cut this short.
No.
I do have another.
No, for sure.
I got to hop on another, guys.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate you coming in and giving us this different perspective. It was good to just have a conversation with somebody about this, about prostitution, and about your side, your story to it.
Yeah.
instead of just coming in here and be like, hey, first tell me how much do you get fucked out of a week? You know what I mean? Like, I understand that there's more to it, but there's also those crazy stories that I was fascinated when there was like that first Twitter interaction. I was like, I tried initially to have somebody that did escort services to come on the podcast and talk about it. Yeah. But then it just didn't pan out. Yeah. And then this presented itself, and I'm like, I just have so many questions. Yeah. Like, we could have probably had a 3-hour conversation. I just like, totally. More about what you do and like how it's perceived, how people. Yeah, the perception of it. Yeah. There's so much more to it that you can't just fit in an hour and 20 minutes, you know? Yeah, no, totally. I totally get that. Yeah. But if you have a social handle or anything that people could tweet you and be like, great episode. Yeah, Shannon Sweet on 1 or shannonsweet.com. Shannonsweet.com. Yeah, okay. It's a website. So, all right. Yeah. Shannon Sweet 1 on Twitter. Yeah, Shannon Sweet 1 on Twitter or Shannon Sweet, and it's SWEE1. Okay. Yeah, and then shannonsweet.com. Okay, perfect. Yes. Well, thank you, Shannon, for coming in. We appreciate you coming on the Uncle Hack podcast. And it's been Thanks a pleasure for having me. Anytime. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. We will probably have to, like, once this kind of lifts and all that, maybe we'll bring you back in. That maybe would be awesome. Some new experiences. New stories. Yes. I'll bring up some stories about Lloydminster. Yes, that's a good one. Awesome. Okay, awesome. Thank you.